Hello. Hello. How are
Hello.
you?
Very well, thanks. How are you doing?
Doing good. Except for tech challenges today, but whatever. I couldn't go live in the Facebook group, so I had to record the training that I was doing and then upload it. So that's what I did. But yeah. I think I remembered why I stopped doing the lunch and learns because it's so much trouble to do it from like Zoom. But anywho, um welcome to day 2. And today we are going to be talking about ethics, and we are going to watch another video. This time I'm going to assign you competencies to look for in that video. And I did upload that form to Drive, so you can download that if you have not already. We're not gonna do that right this second, but you can download it in the meantime, before we get to the recording. Did any questions come up for either of you?
Mm-mm.
It's the class. Okay.
Where's the form again?
Mm.
Here, I'll show you.
Like I'm in my, because I didn't download the form.
Yeah, me neither.
New posts. Are you
So,
gonna share your screen?
can you see it?
Oh, we have to go into, okay, I got to remember how to get in there.
Well, no, you don't have to go in there. You can stay right up in here in the program level.
Okay,
So just see your videos here from class 1 and
yeah,
then keep going to the forum. Where'd it go? Oh, no, I did upload it. Hang on. Oh, not the forum, the Drive. Sorry. Keep going to the Drive, and then here it is, the observation feedback form.
okay,
Uh-huh.
cool. I'm gonna do
Okay.
that right now quickly. Um,
Mhm.
Okay.
Mm.
I'll give you guys a second to do that.
Okay, I was in the wrong place. There we go. Wait, what's it called again?
Observation form.
Why do I not see that? Sorted by most recent. I have,
Maybe log out and log back in. Do you see it, Rita?
I managed to log myself out.
Okay, hold on. I'm logging back in, but I just logged in.
Hmm.
Let me, because I go into our calls through this area. I don't have it there. The last thing I see is July 30th, updated core competencies, SCECA Chapter 1 PDF. I don't have a, weird. Why
And you're
don't I
under the Drive?
Yeah,
Hmm.
I just don't have it.
All right, I'm gonna just link it.
File type all, right? Yeah. Huh.
I don't know. I don't know why, but I'm going to link it in the chat of the Zoom.
Okay.
Okay.
And then you guys can just download it from there.
Okay.
And I can't remember where I got the program book now. Well, it would have actually, it was in the same place. And hold on, now I'm at announcements. Here we go. Okay, class 2.
Yeah, now I'm also definitely in the drive.
That's so weird because it's there on my end.
Yeah,
I mean, I showed it to you, so I'm not sure. But anyway, that's okay. Here.
but you can grab it from the chat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Oh, where did it go? Oh, I see it did it in the desktop. Do you see it in the chat?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to print mine so long. There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
All right. Right. Um, and, yeah. All right, I'm going to open up the ethics first. We're going to go over that. So the ethics were updated in 2021. The end of 2021. So some of them have 2021 as the copyright date, but most of them have 2022. So screen. All right, so we're gonna go over this. So there's 5 main sections of the ethics. There's the introduction, there's key definitions, the core values and ethical principles, ethical standards, and the pledge. So the ICF Code of Ethics describes the core values of the International Coaching Federation, ethical principles and ethical standards of behavior for all ICF professionals. And meeting these ICF ethical standards of behavior is the first of the ICF core coaching competencies, which demonstrates ethical practice, understands and consistently applies coaching ethics and standards. The ICF Code of Ethics serves to uphold the integrity of the ICF and the global coaching profession by setting standards of conduct consistent with the ICF core values and ethical principles, guiding ethical reflection, education, and decision-making, adjudicating and preserving ICF coach standards through the ICF ethical conduct review process, and providing the basics for ICF ethics training in an ICF accredited training program, which this is, and this is your ethics training. You're actually required to have 3 hours of ethics training. So it's this class and then feedback in anything in your one-on-ones adds up to the 3 hours. So the ICF Code of Ethics applies when ICF professionals represent themselves as such in any kind of coaching related interaction. This is regardless of whether a coaching relationship has been established. This code articulates the ethical obligations of ICF professionals who are acting in their different roles as coach, coach supervisor, mentor coach, trainer, or student coach in training, or serving in an ICF leadership role, as well as support personnel. And although the ethical conduct review process, which is where people can make complaints, by the way, if you didn't know that, that process is only for ICF professionals, as is the pledge. ICF staff are also committed to ethical conduct and the core values and ethical principles that underpin this ICF Code of Ethics. And that means that any support staff that you have should also adhere to the ICF Code of Ethics. So if you ever take on staff member or contract out to anybody, you want to make sure that you provide them with a copy of it and that you get them their agreement that they will follow the Code of Ethics. So the challenge of working ethically means that members will inevitably encounter situations that require responses to unexpected issues, resolution of dilemmas, and solutions to problems. This Code of Ethics is intended to assist those persons subject to the code by directing them to the variety of ethical factors that may need to be taken into consideration and helping them to identify alternative ways of approaching ethical behavior. ICF professionals who accept the ICF or the Code of Ethics strive to be ethical, even when doing so involves making difficult decisions or acting courageously. So the definitions are clients, and that's the individual or team or group being coached, the coach being mentored or supervised, or the coach or the student coach being trained. Coaching is partnering with the clients in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. Coaching relationship is a relationship that is established by the ICF professional and the clients or sponsors under an agreement or a contract that defines the responsibilities and expectations of each party. The code is this ICF Code of Ethics. Confidentiality is the protection of any information obtained around the coaching engagement unless consent to release is given. Conflict of interest is a situation in which an ICF professional is involved in multiple interests where serving one interest would work against or be in conflict with another. This could be financial, personal, or otherwise. Equality is a situation in which all people experience inclusion, access to resources and opportunity, regardless of their race, ethnicity, national origin, color, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, age, religion, immigration status, mental or physical disability, and any other areas of human difference. An ICF professional are individuals who represent themselves as an ICF member or an ICF credential holder in roles including but not limited to coach, coach supervisor, mentor coach, coach trainer, and student of coaching. ICF staff are the ICF support personnel who are contracted by the managing company that provides professional management and administrative services on behalf of ICF. Internal coach is an individual who's employed within an organization and coaches either part-time or full-time the employees of that organization. The sponsor is an entity, including its representatives, paying for and or arranging or defining the coaching services to be provided. Support personnel are the people who work for ICF professionals in support of their clients. Systemic equality is gender equality, race equality, and other forms of equality that are institutionalized in the ethics, core values, policy structures, and cultures of communities, organizations, nations, and society. So the ICF Code of Ethics is based on their core values. There's a link in your ethics if you download that from the drive. You don't have to know them, but it's a good thing to look over them because ethical questions come up in the exam and the values just kind of solidify the ethics. So I always suggest that you look at those, as part of your study. So the ICF, they're based on the ICF core values and the actions that flow from them. All values are equally important and support one another. These values are aspirational and should be used as a way to understand and interpret the standards. All ICF professionals are expected to showcase and propagate these values in all their interactions. So I'm going to have you guys help read this now. Section 4 is ethical standards. So the following are applied to the professional activities of ICF professionals. So let's have Rita, can you read section 1, responsibility to client?
Okay, section 1, responsibility to clients. As an ICF professional, I explain and ensure that prior to or at the initial meeting, my coaching clients and sponsors understand the nature and potential value of coaching, the nature and limits of confidentiality, financial arrangements, and any other terms of the coaching agreement. Number 2, I create an agreement or contract regarding the roles, responsibilities, and rights of all parties involved with the client and sponsor prior to the commencement of services. Number 3, I maintain the strictest level of confidentiality with all parties as agreed upon. I am aware of and agree to comply with all applicable laws that pertain to personal data and communications. Number 4, I have a clear understanding about how information is exchanged among all parties involved during all coaching interactions. 5, I have a clear understanding with both clients and sponsors or interested parties about the conditions under which information will not be kept confidential. Example, illegal activity, if required by law pursuant to valid court order or subpoena, imminent of likely risk of danger to self or others, etc. Where I reasonably believe one of the above circumstances is applicable, I may need to inform appropriate authorities. Sorry. Number 6. When working as an internal coach, manage conflicts or interests or potential conflicts of interest with my coaching client sponsors through coaching agreements and ongoing dialogue. This should include addressing organizational roles, responsibilities, relationship, records, confidentiality, and other reporting requirements. Number 7, I maintain, store, and dispose of any records, including electronic files and communications, created during my professional interactions in a manner that promotes confidentiality, security, and privacy, and complies with any applicable law and agreements. Furthermore, I seek to make proper use of emerging and growing technological developments that are being used in coaching services, technology-assisted coaching services, and to be aware of how various ethical standards apply to them. Number 8, I remain alert to indications that there might be a shift in the value received from the coaching relationship. If so, make a change in the relationship or encourage the client or sponsors to seek another coach, seek another professional, or use a different resource. Number 9, I respect all parties' rights to terminate the coaching relationship at any point for any reason during the coaching process, subject to the provisions of the agreement. Number 10, I'm sensitive to the implications of having multiple contracts and relationships with the same client or sponsor at the same time in order to avoid conflict of interest situations. 11, I am aware of and actively manage any power or status difference between the client and me that may be caused culturally or by relation, psychological or contextual issues. 12, I disclose to my clients the potential receipt of compensation and other benefits I may receive for referring my client to any third party. Lastly, I assure consistent quality of coaching regardless of the amount or form of agreed compensation in any relationship.
Thank you. And then Christine, can you read the next section?
Sure. Section 2, responsibility to practice and performance. As an ICF professional, I, number 14, adhere to the ICF Code of Ethics in all my interactions. When I become aware of a possible breach of the code by myself, or I recognize unethical behavior in another ICF professional, I respectfully raise the matter with those involved. If this does not resolve the matter, I refer to a formal authority, example ICF staff, for resolution. 15, I require adherence to the ICF Code of Ethics by all support personnel. 16, I commit to excellence through continued personal, professional, and ethical development. 17, I recognize my personal limitations or circumstances that may impair, conflict with, or interfere with my coaching performance or my professional coaching relationships. I will reach out for support to determine the action to be taken and, if necessary, promptly seek relevant professional guidance. This may include suspending or terminating my coaching relationships. 18, I resolve any conflict of interest or potential conflict of interest by working through the issue with relevant parties, seeking professional assistance, or suspending temporarily or ending the professional relationship. 19, I maintain the privacy of ICF members and use the ICF member contact information, email addresses, telephone numbers, and so on, only as authorized by ICF or the ICF member.
Okay, and then section 3, responsibility to professionalism. As an ICF professional, I identify accurately my coaching qualifications, my level of coaching competency, expertise, experience, training, certifications, and ICF credentials. I make verbal and written statements that are true and accurate about what I offer as an ICF professional, what is offered by ICF, the coaching profession, and the potential value of coaching. I communicate and create awareness with those who need to be informed of the ethical responsibilities established by this code. I hold responsibility for being aware of and setting clear, appropriate, and culturally sensitive boundaries that govern interactions, physical or otherwise. I do not participate in any sexual or romantic engagement with clients or sponsors. I'll be ever mindful of the level of intimacy appropriate for the relationship. I take the appropriate action to address the issue or cancel the engagement. And then responsibility to society. I avoid discrimination by maintaining fairness and equality in all activities and operations while respecting local rules and cultural practices. This includes, but is not limited to, discrimination on the basis of age, race, gender expression, ethnicity, sexual orientation, religion, national origin, disability, or military status. I recognize and honor the contributions and intellectual property of others, only claiming ownership of my own material. I understand that a breach of this standard may subject me to legal remedy by a third party. I am honest and work within recognized scientific standards, applicable subject guidelines, and boundaries of my competence when conducting and reporting research, and aware of my and my clients' impact on society. I adhere to the philosophy of doing good versus avoiding bad. And then we have the pledge, which is as an ICF professional, in accordance with the standards of the ICF Code of Ethics. I acknowledge and agree to fulfill my ethical and legal obligations to my coaching clients, sponsors, colleagues, and to the public at large. If I breach any part of the ICF Code of Ethics, I agree that the ICF in its sole discretion may hold me accountable for so doing. I further agree that my accountability to ICF for any breach may include sanctions, such as mandatory additional coach training or other education, or loss of my ICF membership or my ICF credential. Okay, so there's a couple other resources that you have. One of them, we're not going to go over right now, but if you want to pull it up, if we have time, I'm going to go over it. So referring a client to therapy, this is a set of guidelines, and this is actually a powerful resource. It walks through the specifics, understanding, and when and how to refer a client to a mental health or even other helping professionals. And how to manage that whole process. So it talks about coaching versus psychotherapy, why refer, when to refer, signs for referral, how to refer after the referral, emergency situations, confidentiality guidelines, general resources, and then some endnotes. It's very comprehensive. We touch on it in the chapter, some of the stuff, but it is a good resource to just read it. So we're actually going to go to our chapter 2. And kind of just go through the information on here. And then we have some activities to do as well. But basically, we have a responsibility to be ethical as coaches, right? So I have a quote here: ethics is knowing the difference between what you have a right to do and what is right to do. That's something that is pretty simple to understand. I like that quote and how it describes it. So ethics aren't just a guideline, they're a commitment to act with integrity, to honor confidentiality, and to prioritize the welfare of our clients. The ethics serve to uphold the integrity of the ICF and the global coaching profession by setting standards of conduct. But we want to understand our ethics and we want to internalize them so that our individual practices maintain credibility. When we, as individual practitioners, maintain credibility, then our industry, our profession maintains credibility. When you have one person that doesn't, that winds up not being credible, that does something unethical, it falls on all of us, especially with social media. I just actually saw some stuff yesterday about a coach who was making claims that they were making so much money and that they were doing it all organically. And one of her clients found out that, first of all, she was doing ads. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing ads, but it's that she kept saying that she was doing everything organic, which means no ads. So you can't say one thing and do another, right, as a coach. And then her income levels that she was reporting were inaccurate as well. And really the best thing to do, even as business coaches, like I don't talk about money specifics a whole lot. I just started talking about getting people to 6 figures, but I don't even like saying that because if you're out there not doing anything, you're not going to make 6 figures. I can tell you till I'm blue in the face what to do, but if you're not doing it, you know, it's not going to happen. And if I'm really coaching you through it and not using my consulting, business coaches are always a little bit different. There's always some consulting, but as a true coach, I'm not telling you what to do anyway. So it's really up to you to do what needs to be done, right? We figure out what you're going to do, you go and do it. So we have to be careful of the claims that we make. And we have to be careful of how we word things and what we put out in the world, because it can come back to us really hard. And then it looks bad on all of us. Because I can say till the, you know, the cows come home, oh, well, she's a consultant. She's not a coach. But she markets herself as a coach. Everything she talks about is coaching. It just puts us in that spot, right? So we have to be careful. So we don't want to add to the problem, basically is what I'm trying to say. So those ethics, they serve as, you know, trust and integrity in all our relationships. It allows us to protect clients. And it also, again, protects our professional environment. So when we commit to upholding those highest standards, confidentiality, professionalism, and respect for all individuals, then we are not only doing it for ourselves and our clients, but we're also doing it for all the other coaches out there and our industry as a whole. Now, the heart of ethical coaching is connected to some other principles: diversity, equity, inclusion, so DE&I, and it looks through the lens of emotional intelligence. And so this ties very nicely with emotional intelligence. When we look at DE&I, it's important to keep that as a forefront in our coaching, because it ensures that we approach each client with an awareness and appreciation of their individual background, right? Their culture, their experiences. And sometimes we have to adjust what we're doing, how we're doing things based on that person's background, you know, culture, whatever, their experiences. So it allows for a coaching environment that is respectful and supportive, but also it fosters a deeper understanding between the client and ourselves. It really is an important foundation for ethical coaching, and it also contributes to building trust, rapport, and effective communication. And you know, it's really important. I'm just going to give you another example. Somebody the other day, I posted something political, which I said I wasn't going to do this go around, but I did it anyway. And and somebody came back and said, "Don't give me that DE&I shit." Excuse my language. And not a coach, but all the other coaches came right back. Like, yes, DE&I. It's a big part of what we do. It's a big part of how we stand out. We make sure that we're inclusive. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to believe in some of the other things that other institutions might do for DE&I. It just means that we have to make sure that we are looking at things fairly, and that we're looking at making sure that we include everybody and that we're not being biased, although I'm going to talk about bias in a minute, that we're definitely not you know, showing any prejudice or favoritism or things along those lines, right? And then also, again, we're looking at the individual person. How do we help them? Maybe it could be as simple as maybe they are a visual learner versus a, you know, auditory learner. What can we do to help them to get the most out of things working with us? That's going to help them to learn better or retain things better or participate better. It could be as simple as that. It could be a little bit more difficult in that I'm a Christian, and somebody from a Muslim comes to me for coaching, and their beliefs are very different from my beliefs. And that can be difficult for us to remove ourselves from that situation, right? They don't have to have my belief system, right? I'm not coaching them unless, of course, you're a Christian coach. That's different. If you're, you know, if you're coaching on Christianity, that's different. But I don't, as long as I recognize that they have a different, I'm not only tolerant, but I'm accepting. So it's not just about tolerance either. It's about acceptance. I'm accepting that they are different and they have a different belief system, and that's fine. It doesn't have to have a negative impact. Some people make it very hard. They make it seem like it's it has to be this huge thing that you have to overcome, and it really doesn't. It's just about accepting that person or who they are, any person, about who they are. And then, again, just building up rapport, having effective communication so that if things do arise that may, be either conflicting or confrontational, that we talk through that. We work through it with clients, right? We don't want that to build. We don't want that to go unchecked in any way. So then we look at emotional intelligence and ethics. So really what that means is that we use our ability to understand and manage our own emotions and the emotions of others to guide our behavior and make decisions. So in the context of DE&I, it involves becoming aware of our own bias. And everybody has bias. There is, there's nobody out there that doesn't have bias. Now, how we react to bias and how we work through it and try to overcome it differs. So it might have a different impact on us, but the person that's trying to be more inclusive will handle things differently than the person that's not trying, right? And so it might be more noticeable in some people than others. But we want to be able to recognize our own bias so that we start to treat people with all backgrounds with empathy, and that we adjust our interactions to be inclusive and equitable. So actively listening, being aware of different cultural and emotional expressions, and responding with sensitivity and respect. So one of the things that you're going to do, because again, everybody has bias, is that you're going to think through what are some bias that you're aware of that you will have to adjust or overcome as you grow in your coaching journey. And then there's, doing an exercise to find out what are the ones that you're not aware of and how are they impacting you and impacting your coaching or impacting how you deal with clients. Again, those are things that are really going to be more noticeable when you start to use your emotional intelligence. So our responsibility to clients, and this is just pulling from the ICF Code of Ethics. It includes the confidentiality, privacy, identifying, disclosing, and managing any potential conflicts of interest, and balancing the power distribution within a coaching relationship. What does that mean? So sometimes people come to us, and because we're the coach, there's this power dynamic going on, right? Like they're looking to us for answers, or they're looking at us as we're the expert, or we're the ones that are guiding this process. And while we facilitate the coaching process, the client leads it. And so anytime you start to see some kind of imbalance, you want to start to correct that imbalance. And really the best way to avoid that is during your consultation, when you're first talking to them, making sure that you're putting them first, that they know that they are the experts. They're their own they're the ones that choose what's right and wrong, which direction to go. So when we empower them, then usually there's not a power imbalance. And we talk a little bit more of that later in the chapter. Confidentiality and privacy. These are kind of the basics of coaching to build trust and create a safe space for our clients to open up and explore their thoughts and feelings. So this means any information that's shared during the session is protected, and it's not disclosed without specific permission or the other areas where we have to break, which we'll talk about that. But examples of upholding confidentiality are session notes. So I keep notes. A lot of coaches keep notes, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you want to make sure that they are in a secure space. So if you're using a platform, some sort of a system like say Coach's Console and you're keeping notes in there, you have to make sure that you're the only one who has access to it. Nobody else can get to your computer. Nobody else can get to your login to that system. If you're keeping handwritten notes, that it's in a locked cabinet. It doesn't matter if it's in your office and nobody goes in my office. It means it has to be in your office in a locked drawer. And then hopefully nobody goes in your office anyway. But, you know, the only caveat to that would be is like if you live alone. If you live alone, maybe you don't need to lock everything. But if you live with anybody else, no matter, it's not saying that you don't trust your partner or your kids or whatever. It's just saying like that's the ethical thing to do, is to make sure things are put in a place where nobody can access them. Case discussions. If you're talking about a previous client or a situation, then you may want to make sure that you're changing all identifying information to protect that client's identity and privacy. And that means also sometimes changing the location, because you don't want to give like little tidbits of information that could potentially, people could figure it out. Right. So we have to think of these things, and it might seem like, oh, like there's a whole state of North Carolina. Like I can say yada, yada. Yeah, but there's not a whole state that's connected to me, or not a whole state that's connected to my family or whatever. Right. So you have to be careful of those type of things, like just thinking about, you know, I use case studies. And I typically don't even give locations or any of that information. And you can't figure out who I'm talking about. And I do that, you know, because I want to protect their confidentiality and their privacy. Now, if they come out and say who they are, that's great. They can do that. But if not, that's fine as well. And then again, the technology, making sure like your email, your video calls, any coaching apps or messaging are done under secure platforms that comply with privacy laws. So there's apps popping up all the time for coaches, and there's a ton out there. And you have to make sure that you have like, you know, two-factor authentication put into place, that you, again, have the only access to it. So for instance, if you share a computer, then you should have your own profile that needs to be logged into on your computer. And you can do that in Windows or Mac, doesn't matter. So that nobody can get to your files unless they're logging into your profile. You know, again, you should have that two-factor authentication for any apps that you're using, so that if people pick up your phone or your whatever on your computer or your tablet or something, they can't get to anybody's information. And it's the same for social media. And I'll tell you why, because if you use the chat, the messaging feature in any of the social media, and somebody has your phone and it's not, you know, protected with a password, like if people don't have to log in, then they can see those chats. And that could have identifying information. I know that mine does, because I'm talking to prospects. And so I'm asking them questions, and there's a lot of information. So I have to make sure that my phone is always locked, and that, of course, I have a password to open or face recognition to open my phone. And then even once you open my phone, you have to log in, and it has a two-factor authentication for the messaging and for the Facebook app, the LinkedIn app, and Instagram. And why do I do that? Because I have a lot of people around me. I have a big family and friends, and like my phone could be down, you know, downstairs and I'd be upstairs, or, you know, 2 rooms over, or out in the, you know, out in the patio or something. And I don't want to have my clients' information, you know, so not that I think my family would ever do anything with it, or my friends, but that's not the point. I don't even want to have the opportunity. So that's how you have to look at technology. Not only that they have secure platforms, but also that we are securing the access to those platforms. And then the legal exceptions, so understanding legal exceptions to confidentiality, such as the imminent harm to client or others, and informing them about the exceptions in your onboarding process. So you don't have to bring that up in the consult when you're trying to get business, but once you have that client, you should have an onboarding session. That onboarding session is where you go over everything. And confidentiality is one of the areas to go over. Now, conflicts of interest. So we want to make sure that we're identifying, disclosing, and managing potential conflicts of interest to maintain that trust and uphold integrity. So kind of remain, really vigilant about situations where interests could conflict with your clients, and regularly reflect on your relationships and activities outside of coaching to spot potential conflicts. So this means your personal life as well. I'm going to give you an example. I was coaching a woman and I was dating this guy. And a month later, she's dating the guy. I'm still dating the guy, and I find out. I let them both go. So I had to let the client go because now there's like there's a conflict here. There's a big conflict ethically as well as, personally and everything. So I had to let that client go, and I had to of course, stop dating the person that was dating my client. So, it took me a month or so to figure that out, but once I did figure it out, I took care of it right away. So we have to be vigilant. We have to really think about what's going on in our lives. I had a client that had a similar situation with one of their clients. And so, especially if you're doing in-person coaching, that was in-person coaching, anything local, be careful of any kind of conflicts of interest with family or friends or whatever. It could be any kind of, there could be a numerous different things that could happen. But also know what you're going to do if a conflict comes up. And this is usually a personal kind of process or that you put into place, right? So, like something that you say, here's the boundary and here's what I'm going to do if it happens. Or maybe it's just that you refer people out to another coach if you can see that a conflict might be brewing, or if a conflict has come up and you're not able to resolve it quickly, ending that coaching relationship. And I know that can be hard, especially when you need clients or you've been working with somebody for a while. But ultimately, it's what keeps us ethical, clean, and having integrity. And I give a couple examples here. So if a coach offered a financial incentive to refer clients to a particular service, they must disclose this to the client and may decide to refrain from making such referrals to maintain impartiality depending on the situation. For instance, if somebody refers me, to one of my clients refers me to somebody else as a business coach, I tell that person that this person referred me. And the person that referred me knows that I'm going to tell that person that they referred me, because I want everything up in front, right? Everybody knows what everybody's doing. If I pay a referral fee, that person that I paid the referral fee is going to know. I'm going to tell them that somebody referred me and that I pay a referral fee. I don't need to necessarily tell them the amount, but I need to tell them that I have a referral program or what have you. And that's how I found them, or that's how they got to me. A coach who is also an investor in a company may face a conflict if coaching an executive of that company on decisions that could affect the coach's financial interest. So if you hold stock in a company and you are going to coach executives of that company that make decisions based on financial goals or processes or whatever, that's a conflict of interest. You wouldn't do that. So in these scenarios, it's our responsibility to prioritize the client's welfare and the coaching relationship integrity above any personal or financial gain. Now let's look at adjusting power dynamics. Let me stop there first. Any questions so far? Okay. So adjusting power dynamics in a coaching relationship. So sometimes we have to recognize that there is an imbalance. And this helps us to maintain ethical standards and keep the client, forefront. We do hold a position of influence, but we want to make sure that we're not using that. Not even that we're not using it in a bad way, that we're just not using that at all, really. That's what it comes down to. we're not going to use that. We're not going to say I have this power over clients or whatever. And so by not using it all, we can't misuse it. So we can encounter power imbalances due to different things: professional status, knowledge, or even in a specific setting of a coaching session. It might not even be the whole coaching engagement. It might just be a particular session that it comes up. So for instance, a coach might inadvertently assert dominance by setting the agenda without the client input. That's why we let the client lead, right? Because they're the ones that set the agenda. They're the ones that, tell us what they want to talk about, tell us the outcome, tell us what's important, and tell us what they want to address. Using jargon that the client doesn't understand is also a power dynamic. Go ahead.
And also, I'm mulling in my mind the parenting programs that I already have. It's all about tools and strategies and, changing behavior. So typically, if a client of mine would say, well, I told him to stop doing that, blah, blah, blah. And kind of, I need to tell her now to stop that, but that's not coaching.
Right.
So how do you incorporate if there's actually already a set agenda? We've got 6 lessons to work through. How does that work with the coaching and the agenda?
Yeah, so that's different. That's a program that you're taking them through. That's not your coaching.
Okay.
Now, in your program, you might, have a set like curriculum, basically, right? That's fine. But in that role, you're not a coach in that role. You really are. I mean, you are a coach, but you're not coaching in that role. You are more of the consultant there, right? Or the teacher or the mentor, depending on what role you're taking on. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't coach in those programs, though, right? That's where you can coach around setting goals, overcoming obstacles, building an accountability. You do want to make sure that you're putting in some coaching pieces. But yeah, coaches use courses and programs, to take people through, and then they add the coaching in. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to log those sessions on the ICF log?
No.
No. Okay.
No, if you're teaching, mentoring, consulting, you can't log those. So for instance, so I have a program called the Coaching Biz Accelerator. And for the first 30 minutes of each session, it's me teaching. And then the second 30 minutes is setting goals, building an accountability, and overcoming obstacles. So I can count the 30 minutes, the second half, but I can't count the 30 minutes of the first.
Okay.
Because I'm teaching, basically.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Thanks.
Welcome. So here's how you might address some power dynamics. First of all, recognizing that there's imbalances and stay aware of any power differences that may exist due to factors like age, also gender, race, socioeconomic status, or the coach's own expertise and authority. I'll give you another example of socioeconomic status is that there's a pretty big coach out there. I won't give you her name. But I joined a program of hers, and right from the beginning, she was in charge. She was like, I have, I'm a millionaire. I have this, I have that. And, cocky, really, right? Arrogant. But it made everybody else feel like, you're the peons and I'm it. We don't want to do that as coaches, even when you're doing consulting or teaching or mentoring, right? Because ultimately we're still a coach. We're still certified and credentialed at some point coaches. And that's not how we come off. That's not how I come off on my trainings. I do come off a little bit, hopefully, as an expert, because that's what, I'm marketing myself as the expert in that area, but I am not creating any imbalance there. I'm just saying I have some knowledge and I'd like to impart it to you. Needless to say, I did not continue in that program because who wants to be involved with that? Anyway, so yeah, so you want to watch that. And I would say that gender plays a role sometimes because I've had both male and female coaches. And when I'm in the male coaching relationship, it's a very different dynamic. And I feel like, um, that they have the upper hand. Now, that might be a me thing, I don't know, but I don't like it. And so the only time I will now go with a male is if I've known them for a while and I've been following them, or we've been friends, or we've done things maybe co-created things, or whatever, done some things together. And so I know that we're on equal ground. And again, he might have more knowledge, but he's not above me. But most men come into the situation when there's women and they take a leadership role. They take a hierarchy, like they put themselves above. So you have to be careful of this stuff. Age dynamics matter a whole lot. A younger coach working with a significantly older client may find the client deferring too much to the coach's suggestions, just due to traditional respect. And definitely if you're looking at other cultures. So you have to be careful of the cultures too. And what we can do is just actively encourage them to express their views, make their own decisions, reinforce, that their experience and knowledge are valued and central to the coaching process and for them to have success. And sometimes you have to have that conversation in your consult if you see it right away, especially if you see it as a cultural thing. And then if you notice it as an age difference, then that's something to consider as well. Now, although you two are young, but for me, I might get, the 22-year-olds or 20, I think she was 22. I had a 22 or a 23-year-old. And I definitely felt like that. I was like, look, I am not your mom. I'm not your aunt. I'm not, I'm a coach, just like you. So sometimes you have to, kind of be depending on who they are. Of course, she was very open to discuss, to conversation. So I was very relaxed in that conversation, but sometimes you have to be a little bit more formal. It's just about knowing your client. And then your expertise might also kind of put you, seem like you have, a power position or a position over the client. We want to make sure that we step back and that we basically, if we stay in a state of curiosity, we ask those open-ended questions, we invite the client to share their insights, make their own decisions, share their expertise, then we're putting the power back into their hands. So that was the recognizing, and then correcting some things you can do ahead of time. Make sure that sessions that are held in your own office, or which might seem authoritative, or your own space might seem authoritative. It depends on your client base, and so this is a decision that you would make, but you might have sessions in a neutral space, like some people do it in the park, or what's his name? Starbucks, or, whatever, the library. But sometimes if you feel like if you're having in-office sessions and you feel like somebody is, there's a little bit of a power dynamic, then you might say, let's meet outside the office next time and see if that helps. I will say that it can happen with Zoom as well, because I had somebody who, was on my Zoom. Obviously, you get my Zoom link when you make an appointment with me. But I noticed that I didn't even know what it was. I just noticed that there was something going on, kind of like when she showed up to the Zoom call. And so what I did was asked if the next appointment she could host the Zoom. And that changed everything. It changed how she showed up. It changed how she continued or went through the coaching session, and it was really a big difference. And so we started switching off. So I would do it sometimes, she would do it sometimes, and that killed it. That would, no more power dynamic, nothing, whatever it was gone. But I felt that there was something going on there. So there's different ways to do that. Encourage collaborative goal setting, regularly release any, relationship dynamics, seeking feedback, being open to adjustments. Okay. Computer needs to be plugged in. So what is the best answer to these situations? The client confides that they are contemplating leaving their current job because they feel undervalued and have secretly received an offer from a competitor. So how might you handle this? The coach acknowledges the information and promises to keep it confidential, then proceeds to coach the client on evaluating their career options without directing them towards a decision. The coach advises the client to take the new job offer, ensuring them that they will keep the job offer a secret. The coach tells the client that they will need to inform the current employer due to a personal connection with the company. What do we do?
A.
Good. 2, a coach who specializes in personal branding is working with a client who wants to improve their online presence. The coach also runs a side business that creates and sells website designs. How should the coach handle the situation when the client asks for recommendations on improving their website? The coach recommends their own web design services without disclosing that it's their business, seeing it as a win-win. The coach informs the client about their business and provides several other recommendations, ensuring the client can make an informed decision. The coach declines to provide any recommendations, citing it as outside the scope of their coaching practice.
B.
I had somebody say C. You could do that, but I think you're shorting yourself if you do that. The good thing is to B. You can just say, you know what, I have several people that I could recommend to you. I'd also want to let you know that I do such and such. Here's those other people. Let me know if you have any questions. Simple. And then 3, during a coaching session, your client, who is a young entrepreneur, constantly seeks your approval before making any decision, indicating a possible power imbalance. How should you address it? A, you acknowledge their need for validation, but encourage them to trust their own judgment and decision-making process. B, reassure them that seeking approval is a natural part of the coaching process and continue as usual. C, take charge and make decisions for them, asserting your role as a coach. D, end the coaching relationship as it seems the client is not ready to be coached.
A.
Yeah. Okay. Just acknowledging, and then encouraging them to, to trust themselves and make their own decisions. Okay, then we have the responsibility to practice some performance, and basically this just means that we maintain high standards of professional conduct, we participate in ongoing professional and personal development, and that we set clear agreements and managing expectations with clients. So how do we ensure that our personal development aligns with evolving needs of our clients and the coaching industry? What are your thoughts on that? How do you think you can ensure that your personal development aligns with the evolving needs of your clients and the coaching industry?
I don't
I
really
think-
know because I mean, doesn't all personal development align with it?
I think a lot of it does, yeah. I wouldn't say all. There's probably some things that probably don't impact it, but yeah, just looking at, well, for instance, you're developing your emotional intelligence by taking this course. That's one way to make sure that you're, helping to be prepared for the evolving needs of your client and the coaching industry. Anything that you do, mentoring, any kind of courses that you take, any kind of, like you said, there are a lot of things that for personal development, that anything that makes us healthier can help us be better for our clients, for the most part. But yeah, it's just looking at it's continually developing something.
I guess I look at it as how do I say it? Can't think. So like, say for me in the morning when I'm getting ready and putting makeup on, I listen to your podcast, Cheryl, specifically on coaching. That's every morning. In the evening, I will do self-reflection and I will read a coaching book. But during the afternoon, when I have some time, I go into my own personal development books and stuff that I do that has nothing to do with coaching. So for me, I guess my answer would be doing things directly related to coaching and some other things not so related, but related to developing my emotional intelligence and just having a well-rounded set of tools that I use.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for listening to my podcast. I love that.
It's a
Um,
great podcast.
oh, thank you. I'm actually getting ready to do another series, another season.
Yay.
Yeah. All right. So yes, that's a good example. Um, so professional goes to personal as well, because if you are a person and you're doing professional. But having some things that are just for you personal works too. I mean, that's just good. Um, and then the responsibility of professionalism, well, we talked about that. You're doing things like um, learning, um, upholding the coaching profession's reputation, role modeling. So you be an example of ethical behavior or any other kind of behavior, uh, I think helps to really uphold the coaching industry. Um, and then just aligning actions with ethical commitments, and then um, again, the looking at the profession's reputation. In what
I have
ways?
something to say.
Go ahead.
I was looking for a coach, a health coach recently. And I've known one who seems really amazing. I've known her for years, met her at a coaching shindig that we went to. And so I had a call with her, and I know she has a tremendous amount of experience and is quite highly regarded. So I was really excited to meet with her. I did that. It all sounded great. She was charging $11,000 for 2 months. Um, and at that point in time, I said to her, okay, wonderful. So which ICF, like, are you an ACC? Are you a PCC? And she says, what does that mean? I said, with the ICF. She says, what's the ICF? And I said, oh, you're not aware. I said, it's the International Coaching Federation. I said, I'm shocked that you haven't heard of it. And so I just basically said to her, do you know what? Thanks so much. And I just can't support someone who's not ICF certified, regardless of your level of education. And that was that. But I find that really amazing how many coaches are like that out there who are charging $11,000 for 2 months and don't even know what ICF means.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important for people like us to verbalize that we only support ICF certified coaches.
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
Go ahead, Rita.
yeah, what I wanted to comment about, how do you ensure it is one of those things that I do. I just immediately go to where is this course credentialed? Where is this podcast? This guy who's talking, where is he credentialed? So I absolutely agree with Christine, going with certain standards. And I think that's a personal choice, but for me, I just feel safe when I know this is a credentialed program and, ICF. So, when you see the flip side, everybody scrambling for CCE points, I see it at least these people are trying to commit to a certain level of standard, So yeah, that's almost a way how I ensure what am I listening to and what am I reading and what am I getting into and who do I associate with,
Yeah, and it gives us recourse, right? There's no recourse if if a coach just is not certified or credentialed.
I have something to say. I used to have a different coach. So when I came in, I was connected with Cheryl from my very first day coaching. but I didn't know her. Like I didn't follow her. I didn't know really much about her. And I didn't have a lot of contact, but I knew who she was. So then I fell into this person who was gonna, promise the world, was not ICF certified, didn't think it was a big deal at the time, or didn't understand why it was such a big deal. Turned out to be a nightmare. He was one of those power struggle coaches, and it was terrible. And now I think he's doing cryptocurrency somewhere. And in fact, I know he is. He's not even coaching anymore. And through the years now, I've seen a lot of these people that I used to follow initially, following with, the stars in my eyes, right? And the dollar signs in my eyes, and realizing those people, they weren't really ethical to begin with. And because they weren't ethical, they're not still here in the coaching industry. They're
Right.
not, following those standards. And I think that those standards that we're talking about really create that longevity. And when I said to my husband, I talked to Cheryl about this one, and my husband said, "Oh my gosh, you're doing what?" And I said, "Yes. So just be prepared. I'm dropping this money right now, and probably more money on other things she has." And he says, "Do you know this person?" I said, "It's Cheryl. I know her." He's like, "Oh, okay." He says, and then he says, "Is she ICF?" I said, "Yes, she's ICF." He said, "Okay, that's cool. That sounds good." So, I mean, even he's understanding now. But I think it's a really big deal because it's a whole different experience, I guess, is what I'm trying to say,
Yeah.
dealing with someone who has these types of standards.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I think it gives us recourse. And if you have a credential and you're, trying to take advantage of people, then you could lose that credential. And you just worked all that time and did all that, learning and mentoring and like who wants to chance that, right? So that's part of that's part of it. Like, do you really want to
Hmm.
lose that? But yeah, good. I like that. Thank you. And thank you for the confidence as well.
Mm.
Um, so responsibility of society. This just means that we make it accessible, our coaching, to a diverse population. We use it to empower individuals to make positive contribution, and that we respect social differences and we work towards inclusivity. Um, and then the when to refer out, I'm going to go a little bit fast here. Um, if it's important for us to understand, and reading that other document is really going to be helpful for that. But we want to understand where our boundaries are and our limitations as coaches. So, anything that needs therapy, psychotherapy, counseling, advising, consulting, or mentoring is not coaching. Now, you might offer some of these, like you might be a professional therapist and you might offer therapy, but you're not going to do it within a coaching context, right? And you're going to make sure that your client knows specifically what you're working with them on. Same thing with mentoring. If you're mentoring, then they know you're mentoring. Not this isn't a coaching session. This is a mentoring session. Or this isn't a coaching session. This is a workshop. I'm going to be telling you what to do. So just making
Mm.
sure that the client knows the difference and what role you're in. It's not saying that you don't ever have any other roles. You want to recognize some red flags: changes in mood, excessive feelings of worry, sleep disturbances, isolating themselves, racing thoughts, feeling hopeless or hopelessness. Changes in eating patterns, suicidal thoughts or ideation. What you can do is have a referral network. So have a resource list available to use with your clients. Now I have my nonprofit is called Recovery Nation, and I have a huge list of resources because it's for people with addiction. And so we have therapists, psychotherapists, psychologists, and psychiatrists that we can refer them to, and not just one person. We have a list because we don't ever want to just put one person as a referral for a different kind of a um, professional, because then that looks like we endorse them, and if something goes wrong, then something happens, and it's on us, or it seems like it's on us. So giving them options. Communicating, remaining calm and positive, be specific about your concerns and give examples when you're going to refer out. Ask open-ended questions to promote awareness. And then manage the referral process. So you're always going to discuss it with the client, how you're going to handle it. Respect their decision to follow through or not, if they're not in danger. And if they agree, assist them with the transition. If they don't agree, then you're just going to let them go. You're not going to continue with them. Go ahead, Christine.
Just regarding your list of referrals, like, I mean, I have my own psychologist. I'm in Saskatchewan, and she can only deal with people in Saskatchewan. How do you handle that within an online space where people say my client might be in some other place? Do you just try and how do you do that?
So our list actually is online and international, because Recovery Nation is international. So it's usually like centers or practices. It's not any one person. And like they could, like for instance, Better Up, or we'll say, or Psychology Today. Those will, if they put their area in, they'll get a list of people in their area.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And so I might say, well, I might say I use so and so, but it's best that you actually look at and interview at least 3 people. That's what I usually say. So if I feel like somebody's really good, I'm going to put them in there, but I'm going to say, but for you, like, you need to really look at what's best for you. So interview at least 3 people. And then know when you have to actually intervene. The danger of harming themselves, danger of harming others, extreme mental distress, or extreme physical distress. And that might mean calling emergency services, but it depends on where you are, because a lot of countries don't have like a 911 system like we do in the States. And I think Canada has one as well. But I don't think South Africa does. So a good thing to do if you don't have a 911 type system, or like, for instance, if I have a lot of clients that are in the UK or South Africa or Canada, like people all over the world, really. And especially with Recovery Nation, we get a family member as a contact person on their intake form. So we specifically say that we need somebody that's within 10 to 15 minutes of their house, preferably a family member. If not, it can be a friend or what have you. Because we have to have some way of following through if any of this happens. Okay. So there's some situations here. Let's look at them. How would you handle this following situation? A client who used to be very engaged in coaching session has become increasingly withdrawn and mentions feeling stuck and hopeless about life in general. How would you address that behavior? I'm just going to go with Rita first, and then Christine, you can use the second one.
Time scenario 1. Give it to Christine. Give it to Christine. It's interesting. I think first thing for me, I might ask the client permission to, if I could give them some feedback, and just maybe say to them, I've noticed that you have become less engaged. Would you like to tell me more about that? And just see if you can just get behind what's happening. Maybe her pet died and she's very preoccupied at the moment, and she's really in a difficult space, or there's so many reasons that could happen. And then I think assessing where the conversation goes and the information she gives, you could ask her what she feels right now she needs. Does she need a break in the coaching program? Maybe the speed and the momentum is just not serving her at the moment. So I think it's just inviting a conversation with a little bit of a let's look at what's happening. I'm just experiencing some things, and just pack it out with her and just support, and in the end give her the opportunity to decide what she feels is the direction she needs to take in. And it should really be okay with the coach if she says, listen, can we suspend, just give me 3 weeks or give me a month, or can I, contact you back when I'm in a better space? So just, that's what I would do.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So it's really, asking the questions, starting that conversation. It could be very much be situational. And pass. But it can also sound like it's not going to pass, or something that's going on that's not really situational. And then you'd have to discuss about referring them to somebody else. Now, one of the things to consider is that sometimes we don't have to stop working with people just because they go see somebody else. It really depends on the situation. But that other person is the lead. So if you refer out, say, to a therapist, that therapist really is the one that should decide whether or not they continue in coaching as well. If they're mentally stable enough, and the therapist said, well, I'll work with these issues, and then, the client still needs to, do performance coaching for their job, then, they can continue doing that. So it really depends on the situation, and you want to get that other professional involved in the decision. Sometimes you're going to know right away. If it's something about like they're considering harming themselves, then that's usually a break until the therapist says that they're stable enough to move forward. Now you said that one of the things you said was that, it should be okay to give them a 3 or 4 week break. That really, if it's, somebody died in their family, yeah, that's compassion. And, personally, if somebody's pet died, I don't know that I would let them out of their contract, but I might say, do you want to skip a week or 2 of sessions? Or, it has to fit you as well. When it's not so serious. Or not that it's not serious as a pet, but
Yeah.
it's not as impactful.
Yeah. No, I had once a client, and she was a psychologist herself, but she never married, she never had children. And I just noticed immediately when she said hi, something was up. And I asked her about it, and she burst into tears. And her dog that was with her for 18 years, and they were a rescue team. They literally went out and rescued people in the snow.
Oh,
And he passed away. And I was I was devastated. I was absolutely devastated. I mean, this dog actually sat under her chair, and her dog would give her the indication of how deep the emotional story was for her patient that's sitting right across her. So she was just, and so I said that because that was the one time that I felt sure, this is deep level of grief. That yeah, but that was very sad. I was very
yeah.
sad.
Yeah, and that's definitely up to you, right? That's definitely up to you. Okay, so scenario 2, Christine, a client is facing a high level of stress at work and mentions having frequent headaches and losing sleep over a project that's causing them anxiety. What would your approach be?
Well, I mean, I have every indication right now. I mean, it's situational, right? And so I think I would just, oh, sorry, hold on. Yeah, talk with them and coach them in it, basically. I mean, that's my job right now as a coach. Depending on how much stress it is or how long it's going to take, I mean, they might have to refer out. The frequent headaches, they might have to refer out to that, go to their doctor or whatever, or a naturopath, whatever's going to work for them. But to me, this is really, I don't have any indication right now that there's any serious mental stuff going on. And I would just coach them through it and see where we end up.
Yeah, so it's something that you want to track, right? You want to be aware of it. You want to let the client know you're aware of it. Definitely tell them to, that you feel it's best they look for, their doctor to go for the frequent headaches. And then how long the lost sleep matters. They say once it reaches 3 months, it becomes 3 months, it becomes a mental health issue. So that's something to keep in mind as well. You know, do they need to go get, you know, some kind of like CBT therapy or something to start sleeping better or whatever? Like, you know, there's other things that they can do to help them to start sleeping. Okay. That is the end of our chapter. We are going to take a break. And then we're going to come back and listen to a recording. It is 2:25, and so we're going to take 15 minutes, so 2:40. See you back. All right. So you can look at your observation form. Just get a feel for what's being shown in the recording. Make some notes if you have them, and we'll discuss it after. I think we'll do this. Oh, I don't think I did that right.
We have about 30 minutes for coaching today. And what would you like to focus on?
Yeah,
We have about 30 minutes for coaching
hear it?
today. And what would you like to focus on?
Yeah.
yeah, there is an extreme overwhelm happening. I feel over my head, and I need to be able to gather myself through the complexity to be able to sort of move forward.
So what's important about this situation for you?
Well, it's not just one situation. I'm in transition, so everything is important. And I think what's most important is to get a sense of maneuvering through that complexity. Yeah.
What is overwhelming you about this transition?
So the most overwhelming piece is that nothing is going according to the plan. Everything is taking longer. There are unexpected circumstances that are happening on everything that I'm trying to do. And that is delaying everything, confusing everything, while I'm also trying to make a longer term decisions. And so there's just a deep sense of disorientation.
What would you like to accomplish in this session today?
Well, yeah, like I mentioned, I would like to be able to maneuver through this overwhelm and complexity. That's my main goal today.
And you mentioned that you're feeling some confusion and disorientation.
Mhm.
How would you
Yeah.
like to feel at the end of this session?
Well, I'm not sort of expecting we'll be able to move the needle on all fronts, but even if I'm able to move that overwhelm by an inch, that would be something meaningful.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you say you are right now with the overwhelm?
100.
And where would you like to be at the end of the session?
99. That would be good. 90, 95, 98, like anywhere between 95 and 100.
Okay, so a little bit less overwhelmed then
Yes. Yes.
would feel good.
Yeah.
All right. What needs to be addressed in order for you to achieve this goal?
I don't know. I think for each item, there is something. And and like I said, there's like setbacks, you know. So to start unpacking some of the files, my family's moving to the Middle East this week. And there are all kinds of setbacks in that. My sister just had a brain surgery. I'm trying to launch my um, my practice later this year. I'm teaching, and I need to figure out some courses that I want to teach. So I'm in a course that is helping me figure out how to do that. I have been trying to hire people to help with some of my social media. Then I had to let them go because they just also had some extreme circumstances going on, like family members in hospitals on deathbeds and things like that. So there is a war going on in the Middle East that in the last couple of weeks has just put a halt on everything, you know, as you know, and someone who very much focuses on leadership. So I teach leadership here in academia and hope to do that outside of academia. And it had really sort of put everything in its tracks to sort of like, wow, like, you know, what needs to happen here? You know, so that almost like paralyzed me on all of the fronts, just watching the devastation, the conflict, the deaths. And so so there's that sense of like overwhelm piling up on this already existing transition, on figuring out whether or not I'm joining my family in the Middle East. Do I want to stay in the United States? And knowing now that there is an explosion of conflict happening in that part of the world. And we also come from the world where, you know, we grew up in the war. And so it's just sort of, it's been hard. And I'm also working on my doctoral applications. And so there is just a sense of, I know what needs to be done for all of these. It's just that the energy, the collective energy, the everything sort of happening is just paralyzing me in some way. So energetically, cognitively, it's been really difficult to stay focused and present, and it's hard to have a sense of discernment given, you know, the level of chaos and complexity that we're all in, and then of course, you know, in my individual ecosystem. Yeah.
That's a lot. Yeah. Even without the war going on in the Middle East, you've got a lot on your plate. And I think it's totally normal that you would feel overwhelmed in these circumstances. So what's one thing that we can address today that would help you feel a little bit less overwhelmed?
I don't know. I think I had to like stop and reprioritize everything. 2 weeks ago, I started really getting into the drafting of my doctoral applications and just realized everything else was going to have to fall off so I can focus on that, to the point that I might not even have to be able to travel to the Middle East to see my family for holidays, because it's going to be an extensive amount of work. And I think what's also hard about this is I have to be reaching out to faculty members for recommendations, and a lot of them already said yes, which is not a problem. But one of my key recommenders had a brain surgery himself last week. Another one is in the Middle East right now trying to negotiate. He's actually in Abu Dhabi this week with some of the heads of states. I just almost feel like I'm like burdening people by now, imposing on this stuff that I have been talking about, and they knew I was going to be doing this. It's just like, it feels like the timing of all of this is just crappy. It just feels hard to be like, oh, I need your recommendations when I know one of them is sick, another one is out there trying to help the world from blowing up. And there are 2 other faculty members that I can reach out to, but I haven't been teaching with them in quite some time. So yeah, there's a sense of like, how do you not feel like a burden when there's so much more important going on in everybody's lives and our collective life? And it's been hard to, there is that kind of sense of paralysis, like this just, like, are you serious right now? Like, are you seriously going to send an email this weekend asking for fucking recommendations, excuse my French, when, you know? So I don't know. I'm really feeling, I don't know, like really like a burden to myself, and burden for people who I know are so loving and so supportive, and but yeah, I think that's what I'm kind of threading this moment. I have to reprioritize everything I thought I was going to do for the end of this year in the pursuit of that. And yet I have to engage other people who have very serious things going on in their lives, including health and, all these other stuff. So I'm kind of in this, like, I would rather not deal with anything than pursuing some of these things that have been on the radar for a while. Yeah.
I want to acknowledge how sensitive you're being to the war going on in the Middle East, and how important it is to you to recognize that even though you have all of these other things going on in your life, that is the thing that stands out as most important.
It is hard watching through, as someone who wants to be informed every day on what's going on in the world, and it doesn't leave me unmoved. And I am not saying that I'm whatever side. I just know that I care deeply about human beings, and seeing the world, sort of this darkness descending upon the world in this way, is really hard. And yet, how do I move forward with things, and also, what can I contribute? But you're right. I think it really stopped everything. It almost like there is an ask, and what is the ask right now? I can't pretend that there is business as usual. I think that's the service. That would be the service to, this practice that I want to, birth into the world. It's the service to everything that I have done in my life. But I also know it's a disservice that I just turn into a rock and don't do anything. So I know that, like, I'm starting to realize that I have been in this kind of like mommy mode for the last 3 weeks. And so there is an awareness now, like, I'm not being of service if I stay like this for any longer. Like, I know I have to be moving forward, but I don't know how to honor the pain and the loss, and also then transition, like how to embody now that all of that and yet continue with life and everything else. So I'm just sort of like, you know, just kind of without words, just not knowing how to proceed. Yeah.
I'm hearing that despite everything going on, the overwhelm that you're feeling with the war in the Middle East and feeling paralyzed, you really want to be of service in the world.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I think the question that comes to that is, what does that look like? What does that look like to be of service to my sister who just went through a brain surgery? What does it look like to be of service in this transition that I'm trying to do from one part of the world to another part of the world? What does it look like to embody service in these applications that I'm writing and to show that intentionality? Because I want this to be not about me, but to be again about the service. And I think that's why the fact that it's happening at the moment when all of this is happening is just like, it kind of amplifies, because I'm feeling like my words are empty. Because of course I'm applying to programs that are about leadership, right? And so as I'm seeing like, wow, like everything I'm writing on this paper is BS, because look at what is happening. And so it almost like created like so much more weight and so much kind of like pressure, like let's this, not necessarily it's not good enough in terms of like I'm not good enough. It's more like, look at what is happening today. Like, how are we ever really going to move a needle on anything? So that, was like, wow. My practice, I mean, we were going to launch in December and I don't think that's going to happen. It's just like there's a sense of like, how do I show up and embody service in all of these facets when I feel like I'm really falling short? Yeah.
So I'm hearing that the situation that's going on in the Middle East and compounded with the other things going on in your life with your sister and your family are really sort of shining a light on what's truly important to you.
Yes, I think there is that, if you kind of the metaphor of like digging for diamonds in this darkness, I think that is true. Some of the values around freedom, values around service, values around leadership are really surfacing. And yet like leaving me somewhat paralyzed again on how do I maneuver through the 3D world, because it's easy for me to like, go into the cosmic, but it's hard for me to actually like be embodied when it's really difficult to be embodied when all of this is happening. But I would agree that I am I think that really resonates, that what's truly important is sort of coming out of this mess, kind of like reminding me what really matters. Yeah, that's true.
When you say embodied, what does that mean to you?
It is easy for me to not be in the body. It's easy for me to numb myself. It's easy for me to medicate with emails, medicate with work, medicate, with like busy stuff, it's just, and I think that is an old pattern of, well, there is all this stuff going on and I'm doing this, and that's not working anymore. I'm a lot older. I have outgrown some of those patterns, and now there's this new stage where there is opening. So instead of like, but yet I'm seeing that, versus like, completely escaping, now there is opening, but yet like not knowing fully how to stay open. So that was sort of perhaps the reason why all this overwhelm was coming in, because it's a new way of being for me, like the new way of being present. And I think, when I think about being fully embodied, is all of that can happen, and it's going to continue to happen. And I'm able to maintain my presence. I'm able to maintain my coherence, my discernment, and not necessarily feel like I need to be anywhere else or do anything else, or there's just like, I can be with all of this, and I know I'm not there. I'm not able to be with all of this. It's too much. I think that's why that extreme overwhelm is present, because I don't know how to be with all of this. Yeah.
Okay, so you have started to see that you're becoming more embodied and able to deal with more and be more present and not numb yourself with the emails and the work. But correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm hearing that with this extra layer of the war going on and your sister's illness is just too much for you to feel like you can move forward.
Yeah, I mean, it was already too much, before all of this happened. And I had a sense of like, oh, I know I'm ready to, I'm ready to move out and be with all of them in the Middle East. And yet, as time went on, since I came back to the United States, I wasn't quite sure. I felt like there was still unfinished business here. And so I was already, sitting on this for quite some time. And so now I think it's just disorienting. Is it even good to be in the Middle East? Does it even make sense? There's now like a new set of questions. And yeah, my sister is doing much better right now, but for 2 months, like, we were losing our minds, especially for the last month. We had no idea what was going on. Very, very surprising, out of nowhere news. And so we just had, as a family, had a pause. Like, there was nothing else, nobody else was talking about. It was just like everything had to be oriented towards us being present for her. And so yeah, I mean, it just feels like a snowball, like the compounding of stuff. And yeah.
So I just want to check in with you on how you're
Mhm.
feeling towards your goal of feeling just a little bit less overwhelmed.
Yeah, I think what what is, again, it's hard for me to figure out what I'm feeling. I do still feel overwhelmed, but I think what is putting that overwhelm in some context is that reminder about the values and and what's truly important. I think that gave me a little bit of a pause. I think it was a bit of like a reminder. I don't know what to do with it yet, but that seemed important.
Thinking about what's truly important right now is helping move the needle a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm wondering now, how that might translate into, some of the things I know I have to do this weekend. I have to, get those recommendation email asks out this week. And I just didn't want to send them from a place of being a burden, So I think, like, how can I ask them from that place of, and maybe that needs to be in the email. Like, I know there is a lot of stuff going on. I'm heartbroken about all of this. And yet I'm asking you to support me because, and again, like I said, all of these faculty already said yes. It's not a big deal. It's just more of like, I feel like the timing of it is just ridiculous, right? But I wonder, like, if there's a way to come from that place of acknowledging everything and yet coming back home to what's truly important, because I know these are the values that I share with these people who are going to be supporting me, as I ask them to, help me embark on this journey. So I think that seems like a one sort of thing I can do this weekend. I don't know what it means for all the other things, but I think on that front, and maybe also on the applications when I start writing again, to see how can I maybe distill these values, maybe explicitly talk about them, because maybe that's why the essays were just coming flat, or the words were just, I could see that, like, I'm writing like I don't know how to describe when you just feel like you're hitting the wall. So maybe that might be something to figure out, how to translate that into my writing, how to invoke that, how to invite that, how to yeah, that's what has been, I think, missing. Yeah.
So I think I'm seeing a little bit of a shift from being completely stuck and paralyzed to thinking about moving forward towards some action steps this weekend, and writing those emails to the faculty, and thinking about how to frame those.
Yeah, I think for emails and for essays, I think as I returned to, because I had to stop writing. I started writing last weekend, and I just felt like throwing up. It was just not, it just felt so horrible. And I think this maybe is like a little spark of something that I can experiment with. I can see if that gives me a little bit more freedom that I don't think I had when I started writing. Yeah.
What accountability feels good for yourself for these tasks?
Well, accountability. I think I'm good on accountability. I think that I'm very I'm good at keeping myself on track once I know what I need to do. So I'm not, I don't need any help in terms of and I'm going to an open house for one of the doctoral programs tomorrow. It's like an all-day event, so I'm sure I'm going to have a lot of takeaways and some other inspiration that I can layer on to this conversation. So I think I have enough of like kind of push. I think I'll be good on that front.
Okay. As we move towards the end of the session, what is something that you have learned about yourself today?
Um, what did I learn about myself? I think there's something about resilience and aliveness of a human spirit. Something about the importance of values and to myself specifically, that even in the midst of sort of catastrophic events and enormous amount of grief, there is something about these heartwarming values that can give a sense of orientation. The values are a way to orient our spirit, our soul, when it just feels there is no hope. Yeah.
And what's something you learned about this topic today?
This topic of overwhelm. I mean, yeah, like this is not a new topic for me. This is like a topic, it's like a living question for me. But I think what I can do, yeah, I think I really wanna, I think it goes back to the question about embodiment. It goes back to the values, and maybe that's sort of back to the connecting it to the theme of leadership. What does it mean to show up in the world embodying these values? Like, what does it mean to show up from them, not losing, like using them as an anchor rather than defaulting to despair, you know? Even though it's so easy to default into despair, when you see what you see, right? Like, we live in this information age where it's impossible not to, unless you just close all your devices and don't want to be informed. But if you're in the business of being alive and being present, I think that might be something to thread in to my ongoing dilemmas and ponderings around the transition of anchoring in values. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I've been sitting with this for a long time. It's a living question for me, but it's something to embed into already existing thinking.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge how thoughtful you're being about this whole situation, how you're really leaning into your values and trying to embody them, even in this place of despair and overwhelm.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for your support today. Appreciate it.
Is there anything else that needs to be addressed before we close the session?
No. I think I am good for today, for our time today. I feel good.
All right. And did we achieve your goal of being a little bit less overwhelmed today?
I think so. I do think that we were able to get to a better, less overwhelming place. Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording.
Okay.
All right. So thoughts on what you heard there? Go ahead, Christine.
Well, firstly, I felt really overwhelmed, actually. I don't know if Rita did, but I felt really overwhelmed looking at these sheets and trying to figure out what she did in there and if she met all the markers and all that goodness. And I guess this is PCC, so either I missed a lot or she missed a lot. That's my first observation. I
Yeah.
guess I looked more at what she missed than what she did, I think. I
Okay.
don't know really what you're looking for in terms of feedback.
I'm just your thoughts right now. So you said you paid more attention to what she didn't do. So what is like one or two of the main things that you see that she didn't do?
Well, the one thing right at the end, I don't really feel like she celebrated or championed the client's progress and learning, right at the end of it. And she didn't really, I mean, she asked if there was anything else that she needed to address in closing, but didn't really, I don't know. She didn't really ask how they wanted to complete the session, which stood out to me in our last session. And then it just goes on from there.
Okay. What's something that you saw she did do well?
I thought that she really did explore, not explore, but acknowledge her emotions and her strength and how she was handling this overwhelm so far. There was one other thing that I really acknowledged this, she acknowledged the sensitivity of the client regarding the Middle East war. So I really like that. And she also really acknowledged her when she was saying, anyone would feel that way under your circumstances. So I think she did a lot with cultivating trust and safety and empathy and acknowledgement of her situation. I think she did really well there.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Thank you. Rita, how about you? How about do an area where you feel like she did really well and an area for improvement? We'll do it that way.
So I think she was very patient. I think this was a very challenging session when you have a client that comes in and it's, okay, we need to solve the red ball that needs to be blah, blah, blah. Where when the client comes in with confusion and with, a sticky situation. So I think she was very patient. Her patience really caught me. And she really tried to suss out what is this client saying to, and then I felt there was this change. The moment the client connected and said, you know what, it's all about my value. And I feel like, how can I address this, my needs above the war and the needs? I don't know where I somewhere wrote down her sentence, but when the client finally got a finger on that, there was a momentum switch.
Yeah.
So something that I'm very sensitive towards is the word normal. I hate the word normal. So I would actually just say that I don't feel always comfortable saying to people that I think it's normal for people to feel X, Y, and Z, because what does normal mean? And that's really the only thing that I would say. Try not to use words like normal when we are discussing emotions. And then also, yeah, it is kind of, I have this question mark of, but what does it look like to celebrate your client at the end of a session? Yeah.
I think she did it partially. So you can celebrate a client just by saying, I want to acknowledge that, well, specifically, it would be something like, so I want to acknowledge that at the beginning of the conversation, you were, confused, and you were, at 100 level of overwhelm. And I saw your progress as we went through the session. And, and that you said, that work that you did, now you said that you feel, better about the situation. So you're just, it's really acknowledging progress. And you can do that throughout the session. It doesn't have to be at the end. But I just realized I wasn't on camera, sorry. It doesn't have to be at the end. It can be throughout the conversation, but typically at the end is a good place to do something like that. Celebrate the client. But it's the acknowledging the progress they made, acknowledging a breakthrough, or a shift. It's something that we would do, is acknowledge it. I understand the normal thing. I think I feel like I do it sometimes myself, but I also am aware of it, and so don't try to do it too much, because normal is subjective. And so it can be a hard word to use. Go ahead, Christine.
Just some feedback. I think that it would be absolutely outstanding if one of these was filled in by you regarding a session, and we got to follow along with that session and see where you're seeing these markers.
Yeah, so that actually comes
Oh, yay.
later.
Okay.
This is your
Good.
introduction to it, and so I just want you
Okay,
guys to
great.
just get a feel for it. But yeah, and actually you do it with Lori, I believe. But the next session that you listen to, you'll have my feedback form with it. And you'll get to see it. And then also when you guys coach, the instructors will do your forms with the screen share. So you'll see us, at the end, we'll share our screens and show you the forms that we're filling out for you. So you get both sides. Okay, so I am going to share some of the things that I just from this conversation. So when we look at the coaching agreement, she did really well there. She asked the topic, and she asked what you would like to accomplish. I don't know if I said this last class, but those are actually both focus and outcome, right? That 3.1. That what would you like to accomplish is not a measurement of success. And I say that with enthusiasm, because I know that some schools teach that is a measurement. It is not. So she asked the topic, she asked, what would you like to accomplish? And then she said, how would you like to feel at the end of the session? That's the measurement, right? And then she even went further and said on a scale of 1 to 10, because she had to get clearer on that. Just by being less overwhelmed is not a good measurement. So doing that scale, even though she made it 100, but doing that scale was well done. She addressed the importance and the meaning. Why is that important now for you? And then she addressed the needs to address it with three different questions. First, she said, what is overwhelming you about this? That's a quasi, what do we need to address? And then she specifically said, what would you need to address to reach that goal? that measurement that she gave. And then later on, after a few minutes of conversation, she came back and said, what is one thing, because, you know, the client mentioned a whole lot of things, right? So now the coach is trying to narrow it down a little bit. And she said, what is one thing we can focus on to lessen that overwhelm? So she's trying to get her to focus to accomplish at least one thing to lessen that overwhelm. She acknowledged talents and insights and work throughout the conversation. She said twice, I want to acknowledge yada yada, 2 different times she said it. She was supportive, empathetic, concerned. That's a lot. I think it, and then you're right. She said, I think it's normal that you feel that way. It was still a supportive statement, even though she used the word normal in it. There's other ways, obviously, that you can do that. Now, as far as like invites to respond and accept, so she did make a couple observations, but she didn't make the invitation. This was part of points that she did not get. By the way, I don't know if I explained this either. You get points with the competencies that you show. If you don't show the competency, even if the client doesn't afford you the opportunity, you don't get the points. So that's how that final performance evaluation is structured. And so that means that you want to bring up you want to look for opportunities to bring up and showcase those competencies, because they make, or those markers, because they make a powerful session. So the client might not open an opportunity, and you won't get to do it for all of them, but you want to make sure that you're, you know, looking at making an impact with the different areas of those markers. So she gives the feedback, and then doesn't invite the client to respond, to agree, to disagree, and she does it once towards the end. But the couple times during the conversation, she didn't do that. And so she doesn't really get the points for that. And it's something that we want to do. If we're giving an observation, am I correct? How do you feel about that? How's that sound to you? Does that impact, you know, how does that impact you? Whatever the question is, you want to do something to check in with them. That's for 4.4, and also goes towards 7.5, shares and explores. She explores, but she doesn't make the ask. So those are two distinct areas. She checks in on the emotions one time that was really significant. I feel like personally, I would have checked in on emotional level a lot more times throughout the conversation, because she starts out with a high emotion of extreme overwhelm. And the client talks a lot, right? So this is another challenge sometimes, where the client speaks a lot and it cuts down the time that we get to ask questions. That's not a bad thing, as long as we're using our time effectively. So I feel like acknowledging some more emotions, or asking some more about the emotions, like when she described the, you know, the craziness with that's going on over there, and then having to like essentially put herself on other people when they're in that situation. She described it a little bit, but I would have wanted to come back and say, well, so how does that make you feel, knowing that, yes, they're going through all this, but also you said that they're going to be understanding, because we want to help the client shift the thinking to, I may be imposing on them, but I also know that they're very helpful and that this is what we do for each other, so that she focuses on that, right? That can help lessen the overwhelm. So I think that there was, well, I know that there was missed opportunities there. And that's why she didn't pass on, you know, at a higher level. I mean, she passed at the ACC level, but she didn't pass at a PCC level. And she had some gaps, and that was one of the bigger gaps. And then also she didn't invite next steps. So she heard what the client said and didn't follow through, like follow up. What might be another step that you could take, or what might make that step more impactful? What could you do to make that more impact? Something to follow up to see, is there anything else that needs to be done in that situation? Any other action items? So kind of exploring that post-session activities, that 8.5. She did very well with asking new learning about self and new learning about focus, but skipped the part about applying that new learning. So what can you do with what you know about yourself? Or what can you do now with that, you know, what you learned about the topic today? How can that help you to become less overwhelmed? So it's not just finding out what is the new learning. It's like, how do we apply that now? And then she asked about accountability, but did not ask about obstacles, resources, or barriers. Now, the client mentions a whole lot of barriers throughout the conversation, but not specifically to getting this done. She had the mindset issues, and the overwhelm was worked on through the session. But now, okay, so what else might get in the way of you completing this weekend? So we always want to make sure that we're doing that. We are at the end of time, and I don't want to keep you over. Did that all make sense?
Yes.
If you have more questions, bring them to the next class, and I'll make sure I'll manage the time better so that we really should be starting this stuff an hour ahead and not, I think we only had 45 minutes. So cut back the conversation. But I will see you guys next Tuesday. You're going to read chapter 3, pull out the chapter 3 and any materials for chapter 3. And have a wonderful rest of your week and weekend. I'll be at the beach myself, and I'll see you back here next Tuesday.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.